Hello, everybody. Good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. It's Resistance Live, the 24th of September. You know that already. I'm going to give everybody a couple of minutes to log in here. We have a very long list of things to discuss today, and I want to make sure we get to everything. But I want to say just a few things here, kind of, by way of opening about where we are, and also just like attach a little bit of a warning to some things. So let me just start here. Some of you may have seen that Sarah Kendzior and I got into a little bit of a discussion in the last hour on Twitter. And it concerns, well, let me back up for a second. I'm just gonna say something like that I think is really important to say right now. We are in a real tipping point right now. Okay, we have 6 weeks between now and the election. Fundamentally, it's a window in history that's going to make or break this country. A lot of people find it very difficult to sit with the anxiety of where we are, particularly in light of what the president said yesterday. And I'm just going to say that a lot of people are looking for an easy out, for a comment that says it's not as bad as it looks, for some vindication that we don't really have to worry about the president stealing the election, for something that just eases the massive discomfort that we are all sitting with right now. And I just want to be really plain to all of you. There's no easy way out, okay? And one of the reasons why I feel like it's very necessary to say that this morning, and I'm going to shut down this little open tab I have here because it's slowing down my bandwidth. One of the reasons why I want to say that this morning is this. There was a thread from another commentator this morning, and I'm going to be really blunt about it. It actually was last night. The commentator is Terry Canfield. Many of you who have followed here for a long time and who have followed me on Twitter may know that twice in the last 2.5 years, Terry has really come for me out of nowhere. And I'm not really sure what motivated it, right? Like, I don't really have an understanding of what it, I didn't even know who she was, frankly, the first time she did it. I will just tell you that I am really profoundly and gravely concerned about the thread that she posted yesterday that said, you really don't have anything to worry about with this whole loyal electors plan that Trump is talking about. That's bullshit. And I'm going to talk about the loyal electors thing, but the idea that because there's a Republican, because Pennsylvania is set up the way that Pennsylvania is set up, we don't have to worry about the election being stolen in Pennsylvania, is just flat out wrong. And it turns out, I didn't know this until this morning, that she also, out of nowhere, came for Sarah Kendzior and Andrea Chalupa, claiming that they were doing the devil's work by asking for hand-marked paper ballots. So, I just want to say this, okay? Like, there are a lot of people who follow a lot of different commentators on Twitter. There's nothing wrong with that. You all know that I have said before, great legal minds can differ, okay? Then there are things that are flat out dangerous, okay? And I'll just tell you, one of the reasons why I have Terry blocked, and I've had her blocked for a very long time, is because 18 months ago, when I was organizing what ended up being, as you all will remember, Lights for Liberty, she said, things are not anywhere near as bad as the border as people are saying that they are. I've been to the border. I went to this one facility that was, basically empty, and no one really complained about how they were being treated. She was not in an ICE-run facility. She was in a facility that was a transitional facility that basically places people who are out of an ICE facility in new locations. And her tweet on that, which a lot of people believed, actually fundamentally put a real kink in organizing strategy around the truth of what was happening at the border. Now, I don't have any idea why she's doing this. Like, I'm just going to say that. But I will tell you that I trust Sarah and I trust Andrea. I trust Andrea. The nature of what the Chalupa sisters have been through in the last couple of years, particularly with the way in which their name gets tossed around by people like Devin Nunes, tells you that they're on to something real, okay? And I'll just add this. The idea that we shouldn't be pursuing hand-marked paper ballots, or that what ICE has done in detention facilities is not a violation of customary international law and basic human rights. The idea that right now we should not take the president at his word that he's going to try to steal the election is profoundly dangerous. Like, it's one thing to say, like, well, I don't believe that things are as bad as in an ICE facility because I went to this other facility that does rehoming for migrants, okay? It's another thing to say you don't really have to worry about people stealing the election, the president stealing the election, okay? Because I'm going to say one thing. And, some of you have asked about the behind the scenes organizing efforts. I'm really not at liberty to talk about what's happening with that, but I will tell you this. There is a lot of behind the scenes discussion right now among very profound voices who are working together to get out the vote about the fact that we have every reason right now to be terrified. And the question is, what do you do with it? Because you can't unload the fear unless really like you're numbing it out or you're going to believe loads of horse shit. Okay. You cannot get rid of the fear. And I know that that's really hard for people. Okay. Like I get that from an emotional, from a mental health standpoint. Okay. The only thing that you can do is decide what to do with it, because, we can't control the fact that the things that are happening in our country right now are terrifying. They are like, I hate to say it again, but we're living through a mass death event. Okay. We have events that have taken place in the last 24 hours that are a direct threat to our democracy. Anyone who is telling you that you really don't have to be afraid is not operating above board or is profoundly misinformed. So I just want to just say this because I know a number of you have followed her. Please, please, please do not allow yourself to be placated about what's happening right now. It is just, fear. Fear is a massive motivator, and it has to be right now, okay? Because it's real. So all that said, Terry's followers, she has a whole pack of followers who come for me from time to time. You don't need to talk about this beyond today's broadcast. Can I just say that? I'm saying it to our community. Sarah and I have had our little public conversation on Twitter. I don't need anybody running off to Terry and saying like, Elizabeth said all this crazy stuff about you on her broadcast this morning. Okay. Please don't do that. Please know that the reason why I'm saying it is because you desperately need right now to face the reality of where we are and sit with the discomfort of it and figure out how you're going to manage it and use it to activate. Okay. So that's that. And if you're not following her, don't worry about it. Okay. Like that's the other thing I'm going to say. Don't go trotting off to see what she's writing about because it's not the best use of your time. Okay. If you do not worry about it, if you don't know who I'm talking about, more power to you. Okay. All right. And I'll just say this. Also profoundly important not to share it. Some of the great people that I respect and admire, people who are a part of Lawyers for Good Government, for instance, have, commented on that thread of like, oh, I feel so much better. And I immediately had to reach out to them and say like, and it is just really key right now that you understand that anyone who is telling you that it is not real, that what we are facing down in the next 6 weeks is not real, or you don't need to worry, is operating from an agenda that is not in the best interest of the United States, whatever it may be. Like, I'm not going to speculate about why. I'm just going to say that it's not in the best interest of where we are. All right. So that's that. Okay. Let's get on to news. I didn't expect to talk about that for that long, but it feels important. Again, it is on our ongoing theme of understanding your sources and not following things that are, engaged in some form of disinformation. All right. So the president did make this wild statement yesterday, profoundly disturbing statement about not accepting a peaceful transition of power. You should take him at his word. Now, this morning, there's a number of Republicans that have rolled right out of the gate, including Mitch McConnell, saying that, of course, we will accept a peaceful transition of power. Well, here's the thing I want to remind you of. The entire GOP right now is in the service of Donald Trump. And, even Kayleigh McEnany this morning, who said the president will accept a peaceful transition of power, then went on to qualify it by saying, if it's a free and a fair election. Like no less than Chuck Todd, who I'm no fan of, just said right before I went live, the president doesn't think anything is fair when it comes to him. So the idea that he's somehow going to accede to to anything other than a massive landslide victory by Joe Biden, is a fool's errand. Okay, they're saying it. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. All right. So the real question here is, how do we respond to this? And that's what a lot of you have asked about this morning. And this is on top, by the way, of Rachel's broadcast last night that discussed Trump's loyal electors plan, which is basically a plan to get Republican-led states with Republican legislatures to appoint their own electors rather than the slate of electors that is ordinarily appointed on election day. Now, it's not legal to do that. I want to make it really clear. Ordinarily, in federal elections, you have to appoint your slate of electors on election day itself. I'm just going to say this, though. I put nothing past these people at this point. And, the thing that we know from Rachel and other sources now is that there have been conversations between Republican governors and Republican legislators in states where this could take place with the Trump campaign about potentially doing this. And again, anyone who is telling you that this is not a real possibility does not know what they are talking about. All right. I want to make it really clear. The fact that it is illegal has not stopped them in any way, shape, or form for the last 4 years. Okay. So what do we do about it? Well, let me say a couple of things here about sort of the what I am considering right now to be like a four-pronged approach to this. Okay. The first is that we obviously have to work to get out the vote in absolutely landslide numbers. I said last night, I'm going to say it again here. You should be asking literally every person that you have any contact with whether or not they are registered to vote and to check their voter registration. I understand that some of you, like somebody posted this morning that they asked a restaurant customer in the restaurant where they work whether or not that person was registered. And that person said they were registered and they were voting for Trump. Fine, right? Like that's not the people that I care about. It's totally fine with me if somebody is registered to vote and they're saying they're going to vote for Trump. What I am worried about is the people who are not registered to vote, who are not checking their registrations, or are registered to vote and maybe have not been all that engaged in this mess. How that's possible, I don't know any longer. But, there are obviously some people out there for whom that's the case. I know a few of them here in my very own community, by the way. You should be asking every person you know whether or not they are registered to vote. If they are not, you should be immediately ready to airdrop them a link to voter registration websites in your state. And you should be doing this really soon because the deadlines to register are coming up immediately. Okay. That's one thing. So this is my four-pronged strategy. Get out the vote. Okay. Second strategy is a strategy of education. And this one's really important. We've been talking about this quite a lot over the last few weeks. Okay. We need to educate everyone that we know. And again, this is something I said on Twitter this morning, but I want to make it really clear here because you all have a massive role to play in this. We have to educate the general American public that if Trump tries to declare victory on the night of the election, he will be lying. This will be familiar to those of you who watched the last few days of broadcasts, okay? Everyone needs to understand that this election is not like prior elections, that all the votes will not be counted by November 3rd, that in some states, they will only be starting to count absentee and mail-in ballots on the 3rd of November, okay? People need to understand that if he tries this, he will be lying. We will not have the results of the election until every ballot is counted. And the fact that it is taking time shows that the system is working. It does not show that anything is wrong. That message needs to be conveyed to everyone who is of voting age in this country. I put out 2 pleas on this in the last 72 hours to all the reporters who follow my Twitter feed. Chris Hayes is doing it. Thank the gods. Joy-Ann Reid is doing it. Thank the gods. Maddow is obviously doing it, and we're all freaking terrified, but she's right. This is what people need to understand. Brian Stetler should be doing it, and I hope he does it on reliable sources this weekend. I would love to see Chris Wallace talk about this, by the way, in the first debate. But it is really incredibly important that every American understands that this election will not be decided on November 3rd. And that if the president tries to do that, tries to claim victory on November 3rd, tries to shame Biden into not conceding the election, that will be voter interference. It will be interference with our electoral process. It will be interference with democracy. Okay. The third prong, so you have my first one, get out the vote. The second is like my big education plan. The third prong is the law. Because part of Trump's whole plan here is this, right? Like, if, you get out the vote, looks like it's going for Biden, he's going to try to declare victory on November 3rd. And then there's going to be additional voter counts going on for mail-in and absentee ballots. All right. He is going to try to shut those counts down. He's going to go into court, and at every possible opportunity, he's already doing it. Like, please know this. He's already doing it. This is part of the problem with the naked ballot issue in Pennsylvania. All right. He's already doing it. He is going to go into court and try to stop those counts. The Biden team already has a legal strategy set up for this. The ACLU already has a legal strategy set up for this. There are lawyers in the background who are already working on this issue and preparing to fight the Trump campaign on this front. Okay. So some of this also has to be about the fact that the lawyers are there to go into court and fight the battle. We need to support those people. Okay. Part of this is about understanding that on a state by state level, there are going to be court disputes coming out of this election where Trump tries to steal the election through the courts. He is signaling that this is what he's going to do. He's actually signaling that this is the whole reason why they're trying to fill RBG's seat before the 3rd of November. Okay. So part of this also has to be about supporting the lawyers who are doing the right work. Class action suits cannot, like I see your comment there, Gail. I just want to say I was a class action lawyer for 7 years. Again, this is going to be battled on a state by state basis. The class action rule is a federal rule. They're going to go into state courts to try to battle this. All right. So, class actions, by the way, you have to certify the class. It takes forever. First, you have a motion to dismiss. Then you've got a class certification. There's no way that's going to work in the context of trying to decide the election. The real issue here is about how the ballots are counted. And that's the thing that's going to get challenged. All right. So that's prong number 3 is the legal front. The fourth prong is action. And, this is one place right now where we all have to continue to get involved. So those of you who follow me on Twitter know that yesterday I put out this call, which has been put out by a lot of other people now, to please call your senators. It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democratic. We have to motivate. I'm going to give you 2 different strategies, by the way. We have to motivate the senators to delay the Supreme Court nomination process. For the Democrats, if you have a Democratic senator, you should call your senator and say, you have to use every tool in your arsenal. We're at war. This is about stealing the election. I want you to do everything possible to delay and stop this vote, even if it means you have to filibuster on the floor of the Senate all night long, even if it means you have to do unconventional things to stop the Senate from being able to take a vote. Okay. Anything that they can use. That's the message if you have a Democratic senator. If you have a Republican senator, your message is slightly different. Your message to the Republican senator should be, you are abandoning people who are dying of COVID. We have 30 million Americans unemployed. Just this morning, we got the latest unemployment registration statistics. 800,000 more Americans registered for unemployment benefits this week. The message should be, you guys ought to be focusing on how you're going to help us. We haven't had a COVID relief bill since April. You guys are sitting on your asses and doing nothing. Why are you not helping out average Americans instead of pushing through a Supreme Court vote that can wait? That's your message. Okay. So that's one level of, prong 4 action that we need. I do not doubt, by the way, that we are also going to need some big turnout in the streets after the election in the event that this is not a complete landslide. So that's also being discussed. I just want to say that. I will tell you, however, that I am very, very sick right now of people saying, like, we just need a general strike. No, what you need to do right now is get out the vote. Get out the vote in a landslide format that cannot be disputed or fucked with. We need a victory that is so big that it wipes the floor with the GOP, not just Trump, like literally every GOP person who is up for re-election this year, every GOP candidate. We have to take down the party. We have to take down the president with the most overwhelming voter turnout that this country has ever seen. And if we do that, it's going to be a lot harder for him to declare victory or to make any of these other means that he's going to try successful. So that's that. Now, let me just, now that you know my 4-pronged strategy for all of this, which I encourage all of you to work on and share, I'm going to add one other thing. I changed my voter strategy last night, and I'm going to tell you why. We have ballot tracks here in California. Some of you have that in your states where you can literally track your ballot from the moment it leaves the Board of Elections to the moment where it's counted. That's awesome, right? Like, I love that there's ballot tracks, and I'm already registered for it. And I know my ballot hasn't even been put in the mail yet because they're not going out till October 5th. All that said, I have a very specific voter plan right now that does not just involve dropping off my ballot at the Board of Elections. Like, I'm literally going to walk into an election site and vote with my hand-marked paper ballot, like hand it to them and have it counted. And I'm going to do that as soon as early voting opens on the 29th. The reason why I'm going to do that rather than using a drop box is because I want confirmation that my ballot is being counted in person, okay? I am a huge fan of hand-marked paper ballots. I encourage all of you to think through, again, I'm going to remind you all, this is state by state. You have to do your own research. If you can vote in person early so that your vote is counted by November 3rd, you should do that. That can be voting on a hand-marked paper ballot, carrying it into the Board of Elections to make sure that it's counted, all right? It can be carrying your paper ballot into an election site. That is what I'm going to do now. I initially had planned to vote by my hand-marked paper ballot, dropped in a voter box. I am just a little too concerned. I do not want to get to November 3rd and be one of those votes that is not yet counted. I want to make sure that my vote is counted as early as humanly possible, because I do not want to give this president even one more vote that he's allowed to discount. So that to me is really at this moment sort of like what my plan is. And I will tell you that if you are comfortable strapping up the hazmat PPE and standing in line to vote early in person, and you understand that voting on paper is better than voting on a machine, that's the other thing. We want a paper record. You can request one usually at your voting location so that there's a record of your vote in the case there's a need for a recount. That is what I want to recommend that you do. I think it is more important now, especially in light of what happened yesterday and what we're sort of seeing here, and the strategy that is so obviously being announced by the GOP and by Trump himself, that we vote as early as humanly possible to guarantee that our votes are counted. So that's where I am on that. And, let me just say one other thing. I still think that voting early, even if you're going to vote on a machine, is at this point, given what they're going to try here, the most important thing. I want you to have a record of your vote. Absolutely. I think you should find out if you have to vote on a machine, whether or not you can get a printout receipt of who you voted for. If you're going to vote by machine, you should absolutely be extremely cautious before you submit your vote to make sure that nothing in terms of what you've checked off has been flipped. The other thing I'm going to remind you here is vote blue all the way down the ballot. I know I don't need to tell you that, but like the local elections, the House elections, the Senate elections this year are critical, like critical. They've never been more important than they are in this election. So that's my 2 cents on the voting in person by paper kind of thing. Okay. The debates are coming up. I want to just remind all of you that Biden is doing debate prep. Okay. Again, I said yesterday, please be mindful of the talking points that he's not doing anything. Like, he literally had an in-person meeting yesterday with Black voting rights organizations in North Carolina. Dude is out on the campaign trail. He called a lid today because he's doing debate prep. Okay. So it is very key that, first of all, you do not perpetuate the talking point that Biden is hiding in his basement, even by accident. And second of all, that you understand that he's doing what good candidates do by getting ready for this debate. And, my hope is that he's going to call it like it is. He's going to call Trump out on all of his lies. He's going to call it crazy if some wild statement comes out of Trump's mouth. I think that it is incredibly important that he is prepared to call bullshit. And, I think it's the right thing for him to do, to be getting ready for this one. All right. So the first debate's coming up, by the way. I think it's 8:30 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday. Don't quote me on that. You should look it up, but that's my recollection of when it is. And so that's that. The other thing I will just tell you is that I will be, of course, live tweeting responses. I will let you know that obviously, I'm going to be following very closely what Democratic voting rights organizations are doing in that regard, and you can retweet what I'm tweeting while the debates are going on and beyond. Okay. All right. Oh my gosh, there's so much else to talk about. All right, international efforts to help us. I appreciate all of our many international viewers right here. Those of you in Canada, those of you in the UK, those of you in France, much love. I know we have some regulars from, like around the world, including folks who are a part of Democrats Abroad who watch here on a regular basis. So let me say this. Democrats Abroad is an expat organization for U.S. citizens who can vote. They are a phenomenal organization to support in Europe and beyond. If you are in Canada, if you are in, another democratic jurisdiction, one of the things that I want to encourage you to do, and I hate to do this because, I'm all in fight mode right now about the election. But I'm going to say this. I think it is really important for you to also advocate in your own jurisdictions for leniency in terms of migration from the United States. Now, this is hard to do in the middle of a pandemic, but I will tell you that if Trump gets elected, some of you saw the discussion about my best friends here last night who are throwing in the towel and leaving. They are not U.S. citizens. They are very close to U.S. citizenship. They are heading to Europe, and they are not coming back unless Trump is out of office. And I am wrecked about it, wrecked, and I totally get it. So, I understand all of that. I will say that I would really love those of you in Canada to start working on this, because the thing that I am the most concerned about here, and this is not just, by the way, even if Biden wins, I'm worried about this between now and January, okay? The things that are happening right now to Black Americans, the things that are happening right now to the rights of trans Americans, the things that are happening to the LGBTQ community at large, the things that are happening right now to people who are not native-born Americans, right? The things that are happening right now to Native Americans in this country are very scary. And it's going to get worse between now and the inauguration, even if Biden wins. I saw a very prominent trans activist last night tweeting about the fact that this country is not safe for trans Americans right now. So part of this as well has to be about, supporting efforts to allow migration in the event that Trump wins. All right. Now, I'm just going to say this. Okay. I am not throwing in the towel. I am totally in this mode this morning, by the way. I'm going to talk about this at the end of the broadcast, but of reclaiming power. Okay. But that said, I think that's a very important strategy for those of you who are international. Also, you can support organizations. That's the other thing. You may not be able to donate to a political candidate because it's illegal, but you can support organizations that are doing the right thing here. And again, Democrats Abroad is really key. The ACLU right now is really key. Voting rights organizations that are founded by Black women. I just tweeted a whole list of them this morning. You all know Latasha is a friend of mine. Black Voters Matter is amazing, but there are dozens of voter mobilization organizations right now run by Black women that need your support. So that's another opportunity there as well. Okay. Twitter purged a whole bunch of accounts yesterday. I had a lot of interference on my feed. There was speculation from a lot of people that this had to do with Breonna Taylor and the announcement that none of the cops who killed her were going to be prosecuted for it. That is not actually apparently what happened. Apparently, they are actually taking proactive action right now to try to delete accounts that appear to be bots. Some real human beings got stuck in this. I dropped yesterday by more than 200 followers. At one point, I think I was down 300. This has happened to me periodically, and I don't particularly mind it. Once I saw what was going on, I was like, oh, right. Because the bots are trouble, right? If you happen to get caught in this, chances are good your suspension is lifted by now. But I don't want to perpetuate that kind of theme that was running around yesterday, that somehow this is all about people who are in support of Black Lives Matter. It very clearly was not by the time this whole thing sussed out. So that's that. Okay. Trump expanded last night or the night before last under the cover of darkness the executive order about canceling racial bias training in government agencies to include government contractors and federal grants. The order itself is terrifying. It has Stephen Miller's fingerprints all over it. By the strict language of the executive order now, if you are an organization or a grant applying organization that has ever represented that white people have privilege, you would no longer qualify to get a government contract or a federal grant from the Trump administration. Yes, this can be reversed under a Biden administration. Yes, please keep in mind that all of these things are being watched by activists and organizers and by the Biden campaign itself. But again, they are telling us who they are. They are signaling what is coming if he wins. And again, get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote, get out the vote. Like, so it's the only way out. Okay. The decision on the ACA that is pending before the Supreme Court will likely be decided before the election. This is another reason why they are pushing through this, filling Ruth Bader Ginsburg's seat as soon as humanly possible. It will be bad. And somebody asked if it can be reversed. Well, I can tell you this. If we flip the Senate, we maintain the House, Biden is elected president, all of this can be repaired by legislation, okay? It doesn't mean that legislation is then not going to be challenged in the courts again, but federal legislation to preserve the ACA or to fill in gaps that have been determined to be unconstitutional, or a whole new thing that revives the ACA is possible through federal legislation. So again, I have to say it again, get out the vote all the way down the ticket, vote blue all the way down the ticket, ask everybody if they are registered to vote. All right, final thoughts for today. So we're a little bit over time already. So let me say this. I woke up this morning with like a fire under my ass. And some of this has to do with the fact that that I am tired of being beaten down by what this administration is doing. Democracy is designed to be for the people. Those of you who've been following me since January of 2017 know that, one of my big mantras throughout the early part of the Trump administration was that democracy doesn't work unless you work it, right? That it is a participatory democracy for a reason. Part of where we are right now has to do with the fact that authoritarian regimes, they want to wear us down. They want to rub us until we're so beaten down that we don't have the energy to do anything else. And I'm just going to say this because I want to put the fire under your ass too. The White House belongs to us. It does not belong to Donald Trump. The office of the presidency belongs to us. It does not belong to Donald Trump. And the reality is here that he will not be able to take power in the way that he is signaling he is going to do it unless we let him. So we are in, as I said at the start of this broadcast, this incredible tipping point window of 6 weeks. It's make or break time. Either we win this or it's the end. And, anyone who's saying one way or another that it's going to come out doesn't know what they're talking about. Our only option now is to fight. Fight like your life depends on it, like your family depends on it, like your security depends on it, like the life that you thought you were going to have in this country or wherever you are, by the way, because everybody's going to be impacted by this, depends on it. You have a moment right now to show who you are. And, Rachel was right about this last night. I watched that segment 3 times, the end part of that segment, because she's right about this. We now know who we would be in this moment, right? All that, who would I be during Nazi Germany in 1933? You'd be who you are now. And, the real question is whether we claim the opportunity that we have been given to fight for what we believe in, to stand up for our ideals, to understand that the failures of America do not have to predict its future, or whether we capitulate and give up. I'm not giving up. And it is scary. It is brutal. We will confront the other side of this, whatever the outcome is, and we will figure it out. Okay. But for now, we are in 6 weeks where you better fight like your life depends on it. It is the most important battle of your existence. And I say that as somebody who's a child sexual abuse survivor. It's make or break time. You do it now. It's do or die, literally. Okay. And this is the moment, this is why I posted that fabulous moment from Times Square in 2017, where everyone first was introduced to the Resistance Revival Chorus, because it is time to take back what he stole from us, to take back our dignity and our humanity and our democracy. This is the last chance we're going to get if we fail. So let's get to work. I love you all. I will see you tomorrow. Call your senators. Ask everybody that you know whether or not they're registered to vote. All right. Much love, everyone. I'll see you tomorrow.